everyone, welcome to another episode of the Modern Golden Age podcast. And today I have with me Jibran El Bazi, and I'm probably once again butchering your name, but that's actually where I want to start. So we did a call before the podcast, and you shared like the origins of your name because it's not a common Dutch name.
hmm
So please tell us about a little bit about how the story behind your own name.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, and you're not butchering at all, actually. So it's my parents were frantic readers, or still are, and they also had a bookstore together, secondhand bookstore. Since I think up to when I was 2 years old, something like that. So there are moments when I was in the bookstore as well, but I can't remember them. But they like I said, they were reading a lot of philosophy and spiritual texts and history, all kinds of things. But one philosopher or poet they both admired a lot was Khalil Gibran, and it's a poet from like 100 years ago or so, or maybe even longer ago. And his name it starts with a G, and they very much liked his writing and thinking, so that's why they named me Jibran, but then with a J at the start. So that's
Yeah.
like the short and long of it, actually.
Yeah, the origin story. So a question that I have is, like, does the fact that your parents had a secondhand bookstore and they were voracious readers, did that impacted your own relationship with reading? And if so, how?
Yeah, there's always like chicken and egg or nature nurture thing, of course. I mean, because they are both very curious people, creative people. Maybe that's why I became one, because it's just like genes. But when the second-hand bookstore, um, at some point they had to close it down because it wasn't making enough money.
Mm.
But they were left with like rows and rows of books. So when I grew up, we had all the rooms were full with bookshelves, full with books of like about everything. So and I was always interested in reading from a very young age. So I just grabbed like any book from the books from the closet and started reading. And like when I was 7, I had hiccups a lot, so I was gonna look through the encyclopedia, like how can I figure out how to
Mm.
stop having hiccups. So then I found out you could like drink water and then take deep breaths and then drink another glass of water and things like that. Just I was really curious, and it was before the internet, so I was very much privileged to read a lot. Um, so I'm not sure if it's growing up with books surrounding me or my parents reading a lot, but like reading is like the main thing I did and still do. And
Mm.
now also writing, of course, but
Yeah,
started with
yeah.
reading.
Yeah. So I want to explore two or three different things
Mm.
throughout this conversation. But one of like there's a lot of people that go on Twitter, on our side of Twitter, and they are very happy that there are people exploring like the boundaries of new businesses and sharing that knowledge, or exploring the boundaries of knowledge and sharing that. But like one of the things that I'm really really grateful for is following people that are older than me and that have long relationships. And you're actually one of those. You have a relationship with your wife, and you talk about some of the principles sometimes on Twitter that allow you to have a great relationship. And I would love to focus a little bit on that. Is that
Mm.
okay?
Yeah, sure, yeah, sure.
Perfect. So one of the things that I really enjoyed is this how you met your wife, like
Mm.
the moment where you decided that maybe I should approach that. And I would love for you to tell that story and just share how you went from that to start and having a relationship with her.
Mm. Okay, so the first time I saw her was in uni. I was there doing the degree to become like a biology teacher, and suddenly I saw her walking across the hallway, and I was like, "That's like the most beautiful butt I've ever seen." I'm like, um, um, should lean into my horniness, right?
Yeah.
Some people say on Twitter.
Good.
Anyway, but
Yeah.
I was like, damn. And then she was there. She did a degree before that. How do you call it in English? Orthopedagogy, I think. Like a pedagogy, but then a master's degree for something like. Anyway, helping kids with stuff. But she then wanted to do a biology teaching degree as well. So she came in like into uni from the side. I'm not sure. In different countries, you've different names for that, I guess. But she could do like a short version of it. And then I just had in my mind, okay, I need to. So I sometimes have to look for English
The
words.
words. Yeah.
Um,
I get it. Trust me.
yeah, I need to like I need to figure out a way how I can start dating her. So then there came the moment where I was going with I was part of an activity committee in uni, and we went on a trip, like a partial fun trip, but also partial like biology teaching trip with about 30 of the students. And I had gone the year before, so this year I was part of the activity committee, like setting it up and helping and things like that. And Gigi, that's not her real name, but I'm not gonna say her real name.
Of course.
She went as well, but as one of the students that still had to do it. So, and I had set my mind to, okay, I'm gonna I can't find the word. Versieren. Approach her, like just hit on her, whatever.
Yeah.
So and it went okay at the end of the of that weekend. We made the deal that I would cook for her at my home. I said I want to meet again. We kissed during that weekend, and I said after, like, I'd like to meet you again. And she said, okay, that's fine, but you're gonna cook for me at your home, like very straight to the point, which I like, was of course one of the things that I also liked about her when I was chatting her up. She was very direct and confident. So then, well, I she went over to my place a few weeks later, and I was like a broke ass student, and I quickly got curtains a few days before, curtains in my room, things like that. So anyway, so it all went good, and then she said, yeah, but I'm also going to Suriname for half a year for my internship. And I was like, shit, I just got an internship in a town nearby for my studies, which means we'll not see each other for 6 months, and we just met. So I'm like, yeah, it's probably gonna be like out of sight, out of mind if you just met. So then I was like, okay, but I'm actually like falling in love. So what should I do? So then I had the grand idea of asking her to come with me for 1 week to a it's called Terschelling. It's a very Dutch name. It's like an island on the front of like at the top of the Netherlands. And my mother had a small cabin there, not anymore sadly, but and I asked Gigi to come with me for a week there, just for holidays. But it was also in the back of my mind an idea to like test out how would we vibe if we were together like more than just one night. And like halfway during the week, I was like, this is like like, how do you say it? But just like real love. So I was so in love. So then halfway in the week, I asked her, should I come with you to Suriname? And she first thought I was joking, but I wasn't. So then I went to Suriname with her for the next half year. But but it also meant like the university said to me like, okay, your internship is you it you're canceled your internship. Even if you're going to do an internship in Suriname, it's not going to count towards your degree, so you'll have to do the next year again. Like it was all bluff in the end, but at the time it looks like they meant it. But I was like fuck you, I'm just gonna do it, and then I came back with Gigi, and then we I got like full grades for the internship, so it was fine in the end.
Awesome.
Anyway, so that's how we that's a bit how we met.
That's a great story. And like you guys have been together for a while, you already have kids, and one of the things that I'm really interested in is how are, because I'm in a relationship myself, and I do believe that it's true love, and my girlfriend believes that too, and we're always trying to understand how can we try to bulletproof our relationship by learning with people that have been doing this for longer than ourselves. And so what are some of the principles that you believe actually help you live a meaningful long-term relationship?
I think there's multiple. One is like having faith that it'll be all right in the end, even if you have like a really. I mean, it's not as if we haven't had big fights or anything.
Of course.
I mean, maybe especially so. I like. So communication is like key, and that's like, it sounds maybe like a platitude almost, but it's if you don't communicate then you'll just grow apart, and then you don't share anything anymore. So even if you have big fights or you're I mean, you'll hurt each other during a relationship. We've hurt each other a lot, like not not hitting, but just
Yeah.
I think that's another one, forgiveness. If you forgive each other, forgive yourself, um, be honest. If you feel bad or anything, and you keep it locked up inside, it just starts to fester and grow. But if you share it, then you can put it on the table, and maybe you'll even find that like your partner has had similar ideas or thoughts, and then you can suddenly talk about it together, instead of both thinking you're the only one feeling shitty or anything like that. So communication, forgiving each other, and just having fun, I guess. I mean, making time for each other is really important as well, and especially before we had kids, that was easier. It was just like in the evening, in many of the evenings, we just had time for each other. But with kids, you have to actually plan to have time together. Like we have a weekly date night where we whatever what we do during the date night. Oh, that's a secret, but no, it's just it's also just like sometimes we watch a series, sometimes we play a game, sometimes we make plans. It doesn't matter, but it's just a moment where time is only for the two of us. Because else you'll just be like two people living in the same house and both having the same kids, but not feeling connected if you don't do stuff one on one as well. So not sure if answering some of the things you can. If you want more, tell me.
Yeah, no, those are like, those make a lot of sense, and I can share that from the conversations that I've been having. Those are actually some of the most common ones. Like everyone talks a lot about communication and forgiveness, and a lot of times they talk about like forgiving yourself first, because sometimes if you're developing a relationship with someone, that person will have like it will probably be like the person to whom you'll spend the most time with and you'll be closer with. And so by the sheer proximity of your relationship, it will also be the one that has more power to hurt you, and or at least to explore those parts of you that you haven't forgive not like forgive. And so what it ends up creating, like these discussions and this pain from both sides. And so communication and forgiveness are effectively two of them that people share the most. So changing a little bit of subjects, I would love to ask you about your creativity self-assessment. So let's say that someone's listening to this show, they never heard of you, or like what specifically what a creative self-assessment is. Guide us through, like, how did you build it, what is it, why did you do it, everything.
Okay. Yeah, well, maybe I'll just start with how I built it because it's like, well, easiest. I'm not sure, but let's top of mind now. So, I had a bunch of questions. There was, well, maybe not starting. I'll just talk. I had a bunch of questions that I found would come up all the time when I was talking to people about their creativity, or actually like blocked creativity, and also with on my own. So when I was journaling, for example, some different kind of questions, when I used them as prompts, gave me a lot of were good prompts. They pulled a lot out of me to then see in front of me to reflect on, and so I gathered many of those questions, and then at some point I was seeing like some of them would fit together in specific themes, and there's like 4 themes that I see as important in creativity, or just maybe just self-expression in general, which is like that you discovering who you are and understanding yourself, but also having the confidence or to overcome your limiting beliefs, then doing the work, like actually having a creative output. And then the last one is like in connection with others, or welcoming people, or creating together, so that more the community aspect of it. And those 4 areas really, they all have specific questions you can ask around self-expression that can then, well, make you reflect on how you're standing there. So those questions were questions I had and also asked people a bunch. And then I was like, it could also be useful to put those into a assessment, and then people can see for themselves maybe where they stand. And it's not like good or bad, because it's like a self-assessment. So it's just looking, maybe someone else like gives 5 points for whatever that they're not overthinking things, but maybe someone else gives themselves 3 points for that, even though the one giving themselves 3 points actually overthinks or sabotages less than the other one. So it's really for yourself to fill out. Even though I do like show the average of people that fill it in as well, if you get the results. But you fill it in, and then you get results, and then you can just like see which of those 4 areas do you need to work on most, if you want to. And some of them are maybe not applicable. Like, for example, one question is, I can make a living from my creative work within a year. I mean, if that's not your goal, then it's not then it's not then it doesn't matter. Like, it's not like the points say how good or bad you are. It's just for yourself. Yeah, and I made it in like I used a bunch of different tools and hooked them up together. I use a form, Tally forms now. First used Airtable forms. The data is in Airtable, and then I do some automation with Integromat and Zapier and some charting software. So I could use a lot of I use a lot of my previous like software engineering skills as well in there. So that was a lot of fun making it, actually, like a cool weekend project. Yeah, so I'm not sure if I'm answering all your questions.
Yeah. So my question would be, out of the results that you got, like, have you ever noticed any pattern,
Mm.
like that people tend to, I don't know, they tend to position themselves lower in, or have troubles with their authentic voice and discovering themselves? Like, what are some of the patterns that you saw emerging out of the assessment?
There's two very clear ones, and those are uh, the people compare themselves a lot to others, like the constantly comparing themselves. That's I think the first or the second one, and the other one is overthinking their work and what they're doing. So those two are very big ones.
Mm.
Um, and I also ask people like in what area they're working in creativity, like fine arts or crafts or writing or multimedia
Mm.
and or design. And it's also funny to see like the differences between those
Mm.
how do you say it, sets of people between those different industries. Or, and for example, you see in the fine arts, people are look more, at least how they answer it, are more have more trouble with the mindset side of things, like fear of failures, self-sabotage, things like that.
Mm.
While in multimedia, that's not that big of a problem.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, that's maybe also some part self-selection, right? Because if you're in multimedia, making whatever YouTube videos, things like that, you're already putting yourself out there, so you're like less afraid to do that. Well, like because you're doing it already, or you were
Yeah.
never that afraid, and that's why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Um,
And also,
so
it in that case, I'm thinking, and also it's a different relationship between these crafts, right? So because I was a musician, I think I can understand a little bit, like the people that are coming for fine arts, they usually develop this relationship with the craft itself, either that being music, painting, all that stuff, and it's deeply influenced by the kind of teachers that they have and by the kind of art pieces that they consume or music pieces that they consume, and that just it makes you always like you always have someone who does it way better and just changed culture through a painting or through
mm,
a specific musical piece. And I think that that kind of relation or that kind of art, it creates a different relationship with yourself than say multimedia or doing YouTube videos. Not to say one is best than the other,
mm,
but they're I think they involve a completely different set of not only skills but also like um, I would call it sensibilities probably. Like it's rather different to create a multimedia project and to create a symphony or to create like a song. So I would say that actually makes sense from my experience thinking about creators on both sides.
mm-hmm.
And also like so besides that one, is there any other pattern that you see emerging out of the results, or that's like the biggest one?
mm, I could grab my Excel sheet with with results, but it's like it's maybe taking too long.
Yeah.
Um, Let me think. I think yeah, I ordered them from um, like most difficulty to least difficulty, but it's been a few weeks since I looked at them, so I'm not sure
Yeah,
what is like. But I
that's fine.
know those two, like overthinking and comparing yourself out to the two biggest ones
Are
at
two of
least.
them. Yeah,
Yeah, and I
yeah.
think self-sabotage is one is some is like in the top seven as well somewhere.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
So you mentioned like your own creative life is focused on also on writing. You write a lot on your newsletter, which by the way I recommend people to subscribe. And I want to go into specific ideas that you shared there. And one of them is that life is like Legos. Can you unpack that for us?
It's been a while since I wrote that one. Yeah, like I think the theme that I try to um, it's funny that you grabbed that one. I haven't thought about that essay for a long time, even though I saw some people, a lot of people actually liked it, but that
Yeah.
was one of the ones I wrote very quickly.
Yeah.
Like lives like Legos, because it's um, like when you build something from Legos, it's you're creating something, like bringing something into the world, which is really beautiful. It's,
Yeah.
and in that way, I think like life is a creative expression, but it also, like Legos, you can like break them down again or get destroyed accidentally or on purpose.
Yeah.
And that's with life as well. So in life, you also have moments where things fall apart. But like the important thing is, even though when things fall apart, if you have other people around you to support you, to hug you, or then it's okay, because there's other people that can help you pick up the pieces, like
Yeah.
literally. So that, I think it's all about how I built like a huge Lego castle as a kid, and
Yeah.
I wanted to show it to my mom. My mom was upstairs, and I like had a very big book, and then on which I had built it, and then I was carrying it up the stairway, and then I
Just there.
tripped, and like my Lego world fell into pieces without my mom having seen the beautiful thing I built. So it's really sad. But my mom like supported me and helped me, and like pick up the pieces. So that's like life, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, the reason why I chose that one is because it resonates a lot as a metaphor, and like I look at it and I think about my girlfriend. She loves Legos, and we were talking about like a few transformations that were happening, and like I it matched like me getting ready for your interview and we having this conversation, and it was just a perfect
mm,
conversation where I could point out that, well, sometimes the best thing you can do is actually to deliberately, like, let's say that you're building something in your life as a Lego, right? And you want a specific part of that Lego to be like all red, but you put like a block that's yellow.
mm,
And afterwards, when you look at it, maybe what actually makes sense is to just to take the parts out and to destroy part of your own construction, so you can remove that yellow brick, put the red one, and build it again, right? And so that metaphor to me, it's very powerful. Like, and it applies to a bunch of different things. It applies to different decisions that you made, or different beliefs that you have, or even different traumas that you can go back and just remove that. So that resonated a lot. That was one of my favorite pieces of yours. Another one is, you have this other more recent one that's called the symbol that is you. And so you talk about the so I and instead of me just sharing what you shared there, I want to pass the ball to you and just allow us to understand what you mean with the symbol that is you,
mm.
basically, with that idea.
Um, yeah. So like everything is in a sense a symbol. Like the um, let's say, oh well, I have a pen here in front of me, and I mean, I say this is a pen, where I give a sound to this pattern of matter, which in this pattern I would say is a pen, and we agree it's a pen because we all use the same symbol for this pattern of matter that is in this shape. But it's not only with like objects outside of us. We, like ourselves, not even speaking about our body, but like just our personality is in a sense as well a symbol, and it's a pattern of thinking, of our actions, of like our behavior, that is together forms Jibran. But other people have a like a pattern of thinking about me. They don't see my internal mind, for example. So they project their symbol version of me onto me, and I do that with other people as well. So we're all looking at each other and ourselves as really as a symbol, and it's all in fractals, of course, because at like this pen, it's made of pieces, you know. So, and this is a symbol and this is a symbol. Together they form another symbol. So it's all fractals. But that's it, a specific set of symbols. Then we give a name, and we really tell a story around that symbol. So the set of symbols creates a narrative in our mind. Like the narrative for this is I can write with it. For example, this is a pen and I can write with it. And I also have a narrative for myself, which is like huge because like my whole narrative, that is essentially, I'd say, my personality or identity. So the set of symbols, that is me, defines my narrative, my story. But my story or narrative is also, at the same time, creating how I look at the world. I look at the world through a specific lens, like the Jibran lens, with that's based on my set of symbols. And because I look at the world through my lens, then I say of different things, this is a pen, or this is like a microphone, or whatever, or that's jam. And in that sense, I'm selecting which patterns I say are important and which are not, which symbols I find important and which are not. But those symbols, again, create my narrative. So it's a loop or a cycle, how would you say it? A loop. So the symbols create my narrative, but my narrative selects my symbols, and my symbols create my narrative, etc., etc., etc. So it's, so where was I going with it in the end? I'm not even sure what conclusion I wrote at the end. But I thought that idea was important, at least.
Yeah, and I actually really enjoy that idea, and I've been like I from my background in corporate training, sometimes I would do these courses on leadership and on performance, and that was like one of the things that I talked about, which was like you need to understand that you have this internal narrative within you. You have this not only internal but also external, but you have this narrative about you that's dictated by the everything happening around you and the meaning that you give those, the interpretation of those as symbols, right? And one of the things that you mentioned is precisely this idea that if we want to bring some kind of transformation, we want to change our story explicitly by changing our habits, or implicitly, by changing like our personal narratives. And so one of the questions that I would have is like, I'm assuming you already went through this process of changing some of your own personal narratives, and I would love to understand like, what were some of the strategies that you use to do that? Like, what are some of the tools that you use to be able to change that narrative about Jibran?
A bunch. I think a very important one, which I think I started with first, at least like consciously started with, was journaling. So writing to myself like every day for a while. I don't do it that often. I mean, I still do it a few times a week, I guess, but not like as much. Like I think in 2019 or so, I was in a really dark place, and then I started journaling every day, and also taking sometimes some microdoses of psychedelic mushrooms, which helped as well. They go hand in hand, I'd say. But that helped me to bring to light some of like my darker parts. And in the beginning it was really, I was just bringing them to light, but I couldn't really interpret them well enough yet. Or I thought I'd interpreted them well, but then later found my interpretation was again just a dark pattern. So it's layers upon layers of like mud that you have to crawl through to get to insights. I mean, it's not like I've finished. I don't think anyone can really be finished in that sense. But you can. I do think you can be like finished enough, so to speak, to like live life. And I don't want to say normal because I don't think any life is normal. Like to live peacefully enough, like where there's like a before and after, and where there's a how should I say it? I think because like I think one of the narratives I had, like for the largest part of my life, was like that I was not enough, not good enough, or that I wasn't worthy, or something like that. And that has shifted, so that now it's on the other side. I feel I am enough, and there's there are still many flinch responses. I mean, I still can get angry or something like that, but it's like now it doesn't define me anymore. It's not like in the past it would have been, oh, I'm doing this because I'm so bad or whatever inside.
Yeah.
So, and I think getting people from like that trauma side to that, I don't like to use the word awakened here, but because it also has other meanings and people use in spirituality and things like that. But I mean, like you have woken up in a sense to you can see more clearly inside of yourself and see that at the core you're good, even though there's still maybe some behaviors or practices or whatever that maybe are not ideal, but they are not defining you anymore. It's not like you so you've accepted yourself in a sense. That's idea. So I accept myself now, which in the past I wouldn't have said so.
Yeah. That
Even
makes a lot of... Sorry, go.
Yes, I was saying maybe I would have said it like literally, but hadn't thought it at that time, like rationalizing everything in the past, and now not anymore. So sorry, what did you want to say?
No. It makes total sense. It's one of those things that sometimes you know, but after going through the experience, you understand, right? There's that difference. Oh, I know that I should accept myself, or I accept myself, and I say that because I'm purely rationalizing something, and then I go through the experience, and I finally know what it is to accept themselves. Yeah, and I think that I was just adding that I think that is very related with the relationship between our behaviors and our identity, and how sometimes we tend to believe that we are what we practice, and there's a direct connection, and even though our what we do, it will influence who you are, but it's not who literally we are. I remember having a teacher once said to me that just because you play a bad concert, that doesn't mean you're a bad musician. Just because you give a bad class, it doesn't mean that you're a bad teacher, right? And that difference is something very, very important. So before we get into the modern golden age, I do have to ask you about your latest essay. So I'll just give you some feedback, some background. What I usually do when I'm reading essays or getting ready for these interviews, I go through an essay, a book, anything else, and I'll start take notes. I'll copy them and I'll highlight parts that I want to ask. And yesterday, I was reading. I left your latest essay, Dr. Strangelove, to the end because it was the last one, and I wanted to explore it. And I started to take some notes, and then in the middle of the essay, I just stopped it, and I couldn't take any notes, and I was just going through that and really absorbing what you mentioned there. And of course, we will leave like a link in the description in the post, so people can read all of the essays previously mentioned, specifically this one. But I want to explore a little bit more on this. And so basically the whole essay is around overthinking, and you have a bunch of different quotes there that I want to explore, but I would ask you first to introduce a little bit of the idea behind the essay.
Okay, so I started writing the essay actually in early April, I think, something like that. Around the time, my daughter is born around that time, but then 5.5 years ago, and it's because the topic surrounds my daughter's birth, as well as some difficulties in my life, but also like the main difficulty, and also what the topic is about. Like my main difficulty in life is like overthinking everything. So I wanted to write about that. And first I thought I'll just write a whatever, just an informational article like many others I've written in the past. And I wrote a draft, but it didn't really feel right. So then I put it down for a few months, and then over the summer I created a more specific outline, which I was, okay, this is better at answering how you should actually try to, well, stop overthinking or reduce your overthinking. Because I don't think if someone is a real overthinker and has been there in life, like, you can't just stop suddenly, I think, but you can reduce it. Anyway, so I had some good points, I think, on how you could do that and why it's important. So I wrote an outline for that, and then I put it down again because one of the points in the outline was talking about like my own like deeply personal and traumatic experiences around the birth of my daughter. So I it was like felt a lot of resistance to writing it because it's also like when writing it, I know it would bring up a lot of things. But then Tashin on Twitter set out this contest, like write an amazing informational article contest, and I was like, maybe this is a good moment to like publicly commit to something. So then I have to do it. So I did. I committed to it like in the 1st of September or something like that. And then I didn't write anything on it for like up to a week ago, which is so much. That's how I went through school and uni as a kid as well. Like at doing it at the end, I had to. When writing this, I had to think back a few times to one weekend during uni when I wrote like 20,000 words within one weekend for a
week.
yeah. I think I slept maybe 6 hours in the whole weekend, boarded up my windows because it was very beautiful weather at the time, and just wrote with 4 songs on repeat.
What were the 4 songs? Do you remember? Any of them?
Just some EDM stuff. No, I have no idea. It's not like, it's just what I had then and what was running already, and it's just to like background noise to keep to keep me focused. But where was I? So
sorry.
For no, it's fine. So I had to think about that when I was writing this as well, because I thought this article or essay, or I call it memoir article, as in a memoir article combination. I thought I'd be done with like maybe 2,000 words or something, but in the end, including footnotes, it's over 7,000 words. It's the longest piece I've written so far, published piece. So I started writing it and just going through all the, I think maybe the more informational parts, like why you shouldn't overthink, but why most tips around overthinking are just really shitty, and what you should actually do, like embrace your intuition and surrender to uncertainty. And then when I got to like the surrender to uncertainty part, it's getting really close, or it's getting to where I had to surrender. So that, and I don't. Two things. One, I don't want to give away too much now, but it's also not only because one is because if I think in my writing it's I can communicate it better than now in just a few minutes. And like I said like earlier, I wrote this piece and I want to like create a little bit of distance from me and it for a bit. So. But then, well, I can do like a meta-analysis. So I wrote a piece and it was very emotional. And it took me a lot of time. I had to take some time of work because I needed more time to write it, which my work wasn't very happy with. But this was I couldn't. This was was the priority. And then I published it and. yeah, so my sister said it's almost like it's like you've written your draft for the book you have to write, and that's also a thought I already had in my mind. Since the birth of our daughter, I've and all the difficulties I've always had in mind to write a book about that, but I've never done so because it's like, well, it sounds almost unbelievable, all the things that happened, and the essay just is just a part of it. Even there's even more like weird stuff and unbelievable stuff. It's like if you watch a drama movie and then after the movie you think, that's like way over the top. Why they didn't have to put all those things in there? So if
Yeah.
that's if I wanted to write like the full story. And the second is when like 5 years ago, I wasn't really a good writer. I wrote a little bit when like starting in 2011, some writing I did, but like marketing writing. But like really starting to write has just been a few years ago, in
Yeah.
2018, 2019. So I just also felt I didn't have the skill yet to write all this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure I'm
Yeah,
answering so many questions, but
no,
just tell
but
me.
that's fine. That's your personal comment on like the essay, and I think everyone should read it. I just want to highlight like three main ideas that I really enjoyed, not on the personal side of of the essay, but on the practical side. Let's call it like that. You have, first of all, you wrote this beautiful quote that says that it's fear is a lousy advice giver, which I just loved. You also talk about the importance of making a choice is almost always better than doing nothing at all, as a way to share with overthinkers that they should actually try to make a kind of choice. You give this beautiful metaphor that people that are overthinking and not living in the moment can be considered as zombies, which I absolutely love. And finally, you said that we need to be small action maxing, meaning we need to understand what are some of the very, 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 very easy actions that we can make in order to achieve the kind of goal that you want. And because of those actions, one can actually surpass this idea of overthinking because they're so easy that one can do. And I would encourage anyone listening to go and read the essay because it's really, really good. And I really hope you win the Tashins contest because it is indeed amazing. So, shifting through the main topic of the podcast and the last topic that I want to talk about you, as you know, I've been obsessed with this idea of a modern golden age and what it means to people. And so that would be like my first question in this topic. Like when you listen to the term of modern golden age, like what's your personal definition? What does it come to mind?
I'm not sure if I can like give a definition or a one sentence thing, but like I do have like ideas around it. I think it's I think a modern golden age cannot be built top down. Like you cannot say we are going to design the world and like almost like that's like the overthinking part. I'd say like
Yeah.
trying to create maybe I can do a metaphor on games I played as a kid, like strategy games.
Yeah.
You know you have those strategy games, Command and Conquer or Age of Empires or whatever, and if you were playing that like against AI, just against the computer, it wasn't that difficult. You build something and then you create a whole base and structure and walls and armies, etc. You have all the time to build your grand idea, and then you have this big army, and then you're going out and destroying the other armies or towns or whatever in the game. But when you're playing against a human player, they have different strategies, and you don't have the time to build a whole base and design your perfect utopian army city. You need to send a small set of like puppets or whatever army guys to one end, take resources there, and you need to. It's a creative process, and always like cat and mouse, back and forth, and that's I think how life is, and we can't create a utopian strategy and then like, okay, now suddenly every 8 billion people on Earth, we're all going to do this. We're all now everyone wears a mask, and now no one wears a mask. Now everyone has to stop driving a car, but only now you can drive a car. Whatever. It's hubristic, I think, to have this idea that you can create a brighter future from a top-down level. It's very arrogant. It's like Tower of Babylon type arrogance. So on the other end, I think it's good to do it from a bottom-up level. And bottom-up, I mean, is like what we're doing now, like a connection between individuals or small groups, small communities, because then you actually have understanding of each other's needs and wants and desires. You actually support each other. You can trust each other and lean on each other. You don't need that many external laws or anything like that, because you have relations built on trust. And if there's enough of that around the world, then by definition, just good stuff starts floating up. But that's difficult, of course. Like when we lived like whatever 10,000 years ago in those small communities, then that was the default. But now we're living in a global society, and with like when you're walking through a city, like maybe you meet someone on the road that you know, like maybe one person, but like the other 1,000 or 10,000 people you see on the same day, you don't know at all who they are. So you can't trust them yet. So it's difficult to create that enough momentum for a specific goal or interest that you have as a group, because the group, there's not that much of a group anymore. I even see it like even like I live in a town, not that small a town, but and we as neighbors help each other somewhat, but it's like when I go like 200 meters out, then I don't really know the people in those places anymore. So it's where was I going with it? Yeah, I think it should be a bottom up route to a golden age, approach, and what would a golden age look like? Sorry, or
No, I was thinking that I can reframe the question in based on what you said, because the whole thing about this podcast is I tried to build it first as a top-down approach. So I thought that I had to be like to have like this very clear definition of what a modern golden age would look like, and then go and meet people. And then I realized that was just plain stupid. It didn't make any sense, because one of the principles was co-creating, and who am I to have this clear to say what the modern golden age looks like. So I totally agree on that, and like based on what you said, like having different communities working to, or connecting and thinking about this actually is a way to build the modern golden age first as different communities, and then finding common principles that allow to unite these different communities into bigger ones that can then create like a modern golden age. So my question based on that would be, what are some of the principles or values or beliefs that you think could unite these different groups and allow for a bottom-up approach to a modern golden age?
I think I'll probably come back to like timeless principles or ideas like kindness. I think that's maybe the most important one. Be kind to others and to yourself. Curiosity, although some people are more curious than others, but like at least leaning into that curiosity. Another thing I think people should lean into is like their weirdness. I also wrote about that, but it's like like we're all different and unique, and we all, I think, have a gift or multiple gifts even for different things. Um, and it's not like you can change that gift or something like that. But what you can change is where you're at. Like there's this caricature comic somewhere, I think, of a group of animals in a row, and then a teacher or director or boss or whatever says, "Okay, now climb up the tree." And like there's a monkey, an elephant, a mouse,
A
a
fish.
lion, whatever, fish.
Yeah.
Like some will be able to climb up the tree easily, like the monkey, but the elephant will never be able to. But it doesn't mean the elephant is worth less. It's in what context are they? So I think you should put yourself into a context where you can thrive and use your gift. And that's difficult can be difficult for a bunch of reasons. For example, maybe your gift, your power wasn't ever accepted as a kid somewhere. And then you have more difficulty accepting it yourself. So you don't even go looking for where you fit in. All kinds of tragedies there, but also very beautiful things for when you do find you fit in somewhere. And I think that's very important. So I think that's a power which was much more noticeable or worked with in the past. Like if you had a small tribe or whatever, 100, 200 people, and you were born and they would see like this kid is being born and had difficulty in early life for some reason, or they has this gift or that gift, and they know like I'm not sure where I've read this, but like the kids that eventually like started to apprentice with a shaman in different kinds of cultures were usually the kids that had traumatic early life events or diseases or anything, because they went through the trauma but they also usually went through the trauma because they were very sensitive. The people in the tribe could see a sensitive child, but a sensitive child was also the one that was like in contact with. Yeah, I'm going to use some mythological terms or metaphysical terms, but you don't have to understand it as if it's metaphysical. But that's how they looked at it then. But like those sensitive kids were more in contact with the divine, you'd say, like. They became shamans or apprentice of the shamans, and the shamans themselves, because they were in contact with themselves in the divine and could understand like the psychology of other people, could change perspectives more easily, could shape shift. But it's just like that's actually just changing perspective and then helping people with perspective. So yeah, and you had all different kinds of gifts within a community, and everyone saw each other as having different gifts and completely accepting and understanding those gifts and working with them.
Yeah.
While today everyone goes to the same type of school and has to learn the same things and is measured on this or tested on the same things, which I find you're working with lots of kids in school as well. You know how difficult that can be, like to put everyone in the same box or same label. It's horrible, I think. So I think a big part of like a modern golden age is, I wouldn't say this is how school should look like, but I can say how it shouldn't look like. It shouldn't look like what we have now, as I'd say, as it relates to education.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I do believe that education is one of the most fundamental areas that we can work with in order to bring that modern golden age. That associated with finding other people to create these smaller tribes where you can explore different values and ideas that allow for the emergence of guidelines to get into a modern golden age. Those two practices or those two beliefs I totally agree with. Jibran, I do have one last question to you, which is, you mentioned like some general principles that one could apply. Is there any specific practice that you think more people doing would allow for a modern golden age to emerge? And if so, what is that practice, or what is that practice, or what are those practices?
So, can you reply, because you broke up from the start of the question.
Yeah, sorry. So I was just saying that you mentioned a lot of the idea of values and principles that one can go. But like my question would be, besides those, is there any specific practices that you think one should do or could do in order to bring that modern golden age?
Yeah, I think yes, I have like a general idea around it and also a specific exercise even. So the general idea I'd say is understanding yourself better, because if you understand yourself, then you know who you are and what your gift is or what you can give to the world. And if everyone would do that, then we can all give of ourselves to each other, and also be able to receive things because we know we don't have those other things. So if I know, for example, that I have difficulty in like whatever public speaking or something, but I do have cool ideas that are maybe valuable to be spoken aloud, I can share those ideas with the people that love speaking aloud, for example. And so to understand yourself, I think like introspection is really important. And there's different ways you can introspect. And like what works for me is journaling, whether it's like writing or just sometimes I record myself. That helps me a lot. But for other people, it's something else. And I think that's maybe why I focus on creativity so much as well. I think for most people, creative expression is actually the way to start to understand themselves, because when you're expressing yourself creatively, it comes from like the deep part inside, and then you put it out, and then you can see it again in a song or a poetry or whatever way your expression, whatever form your expression takes, and then you can see it, and then you can actually reflect because you're seeing it in front of you. It's not hidden anymore somewhere inside of you. You created it, and then you can look at it, and other people can see it as well. And for some people, it will resonate, and then they can understand a part of themselves as well. So I think like creative expression is key, and maybe some type of journaling or anything. That's maybe more goal oriented, like trying to understand yourself through journaling. And creative expression is maybe not that much goal oriented, but also helps in understanding yourself.
The idea that your creative expression is actually one of the best ways to know like your gift is it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Jibran, I want to thank you, of course, for doing this. My last question would be, if people want to connect with you, what are the best places to do so?
Well, Twitter for one. I'm hanging around there a lot. We met through that. So you can find me on my handle is at @askjibran, ASKJIBRAN. I also have a Substack, so it's jibran.substack.com. And I also have if you want to find my creative assessment and some older blog posts, you can find me on jibranelbasi.com. So just like my full name.com. That's one of the pros of having a unique name. You can get the domain name.
The domain. Yeah. So, Jibran, once again, thank you so much. We'll leave the links in the description of the show with all those different links, actually. And that's it. Thank you so much for doing this. It was a real pleasure. To everyone listening, if you want, you can leave a review of the podcast in your favorite podcast platform. Also, maybe subscribing to the YouTube channel or my newsletter. That's the best way for you to get the information on every single show. And you should also go and follow Jibran on Twitter and on his Substack. And that's it. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Goodbye. Thank you, Jibran.